Once Upon a Time by Hobbit Falls on Archive of Our Own. Narrated by Kimberly Likes Tea. Chapter 8 The Prince on the Glass Hill. Of course, Ace was proven wrong when he awoke to find himself situated on top of a large glass hill. 3 golden apples piled on his lap. The sun beat down on him, and he squinted over the land, trying to see if anyone was there. His father in this story, Malleus surprisingly, was behind him when he first woke up. Seeing Malleus that close made him want to either scream in fear or slide down the mountain to get away from him as fast as possible. Malleus didn't seem perturbed, only explaining to him that whoever climbed the glass hill and gathered the golden apples from him will marry him. With that, he vanished in the blink of an eye, and Ace was once again alone. He frowned when he noticed Sebek and Silver at the bottom of the hill, staring up at him.
Those two are going to try and get the apples to marry me?
Ace thought, worry creeping into him.
Now I know how Deuce felt when Leona made advances on him. Where is Deuce anyway?
Annoyed shout snapped Ace out of his thoughts, and he let out a relieved sigh when he saw that none of them had managed to make it up the hill even a little bit. Not one of them looked like Deuce, and he let out a huff, but sat back up again when he saw another figure make its way towards them. The figure turned out to be a knight in brass, who ended up climbing the hill about 1/3 the way up. Realization hit Ace, and he threw one of the apples at the knight. The knight caught it and fled too quickly to see who it was.
I hope that's who I thought it was.
The next day, the same crowd from before arrived to try and make it up the hill. This time, Silver and Sebek were joined by Lilia, who in turn seemed to be frowning at what the other two were telling him. A loud neigh drew everyone's attention to another knight, this one in silver, and they moved aside as he climbed halfway up the glass hill. Ace smiled at this before throwing the second apple at the knight. He caught it and turned back around, vanishing from sight as quickly as the first knight. The next game came with the same results. So many tried to climb the hill, but they failed until a knight appeared. This time, his armor was made out of gold, and he made it all the way up the top. Both the knight and prince stared at each other for a moment before Ace held out the last apple. The knight took it wordlessly and turned around to leave.
Wait!
Ace shouted, causing the knight to freeze.
May I ask who you are?
The knight chuckled before turning towards Ace.
Who do you think I am, Ace?
Ace's eyes whitened at the familiar voice, a grin overtaking his face. The knight, Deuce, took off down the hill, vanishing before any of the remaining crowd was able to catch him.
So, someone has successfully climbed up to you then, Armin?
Malleus asked, sitting on his throne.
Yes, father,
Ace replied, squirming on the throne next to Malleus.
They have taken all of the apples,
he sighed.
While I am relieved to be down that hill, I only wish I knew who that knight was.
He was lying through his teeth. He knew exactly who that knight was, but that wasn't how the story went. Malleus looked at him thoughtfully before summoning a servant.
Summon everyone in the kingdom here,
he ordered.
We must find out who that knight is.
The servant nodded and rushed off, making Ace squirm impatiently even more.
Do not worry, my son,
Malleus said, placing a hand on Ace's arm.
We will find your knight sure enough.
After what felt like a few hours, multiple men appeared.
None of them could produce even one of the golden apples, and Ace sent each and every one away, growing more and more desperate to see Deuce's face in the sea of suitors. Eventually, Lilia came forward with Sebek and Silver following behind. Neither of them had any of the apples either, and Ace's heart sank. Deuce wasn't with them, and they were the last group.
Is there anyone else in your family?
Malleus asked, sensing Ace's sadness.
Only our younger brother, Damon.
Silver spoke up.
But he couldn't have been the knight. And why not?
Ace asked, frowning.
All he does is sit in ashes,
Sebek replied.
He couldn't have moved one bit.
Father, Ace began, turning to Malleus with pleading eyes.
I did call for everyone to be brought here.
Malleus sighed.
Please bring him here.
Lilia bowed, and almost in a flash returned with Deuce. Deuce's clothes were covered in ash, but he gave Ace a small smile when they made eye contact. Ace's heart flipped, and he returned the smile.
Boy,
Malleus began, peering down at Deuce.
do you have the 3 golden apples from my son?
I do, Your Majesty.
Deuce replied, producing all 3 of the apples.
They're right here.
Cries of surprise came from Lilia, Sebek, and Silver, while Ace clapped his hands and cried out in joy.
Father, it's him!
He exclaimed, running towards Deuce.
It's my knight!
He flung his arms around Deuce, hugging him tightly. Deuce hugged him back just as tightly, causing Malleus to laugh.
This is a cause for celebration.
He declared.
My servants, get everything prepared. For tomorrow there'll be a wedding.
Ace adjusted his wedding outfit while he impatiently waited at the altar. He had thought that once Deuce was declared as the knight who received the apples, the book would have spit them out. He was quickly proven wrong when the 2 of them were whisked away in different directions, and he was soon waiting at the altar to get married.
This is going way too fast.
Ace gulped, drowning out the chattering around him.
We only just confessed to each other, and now we're getting married?
The sounds of the doors opening made Ace turn around, his heart catching in his throat. Deuce made his way towards him, his arm stuck in the crook of Lilia's elbow. He looked to be nervous as well, smiling nervously at Ace. Eventually, he was led up to the altar, and he took Ace's hand in his. Whatever the priest was saying became white noise to Ace, the boy only focusing on Deuce, whose face had turned beet red.
What?
He mouthed.
Why are you staring at me like that? You're beautiful.
Ace mouthed back, delighting in Deuce's face getting redder.
I can't believe this. We only just confessed, and now we're getting married. You don't want to marry me?
Deuce asked, pouting a little.
Not right now.
Ace chuckled.
If I had ever managed to confess to you during school, I would have asked you to marry me after we graduated.
Deuce's eyes whitened at this, and he opened his mouth to reply, but was cut off by the priest.
I now pronounce you 2 as husband and husband. You may now kiss to seal the union.
Both Deuce and Ace froze at this, before Ace moved forward, cupping Deuce's cheek with one of his hands. Deuce moved forward as well, and soon their lips connected to cheers from the crowd. A bright light appeared, but they paid no mind to it, too lost in the giddiness of finally kissing the one they loved. we are almost done with my very first fan fiction series, but I do have other things planned, so if you like what you see or hear, please consider liking, subscribing, or maybe leaving a comment. Have a nice day. Goodbye.